Għal dawk li għadhom kif inaqdu magħna dan huwa il-programm Stenbah, preżentazzjoni tiegħi Ivan Bartolo, fejn illum se nwaslulkom suġġett verament interessanti flimkien miegħi jikkoordina d-diskussjoni għandi lil Alfred Difesa illi issa indera sew anke magħkom telespettaturi tagħna tal-programm Stenbah. Però nistieden lill-Alfred biex qabel ilaqgħana ma' Jani King u anki Pat u ebella kumpanija hawnhekk dalgħodu jiena nixtieq nistiednu jagħmel l-eżerċizzju ta' kull filgħodu. Meta jkollna lil Alfred magħna, kull filgħodu jgħinna aktar nirrilassaw u hekk se jagħmel Alfred dalgħodu. Inħalli fidejk Alfred.
Insellmilkom u veru nistiedinkom għal diskussjoni interessanti, imma biex wieħed jisma' irid jipprepara ruħu. Għax inkella jisma' ma jismax, alla nixtieq li dak li qed tagħmlu titilqu dak li qed tagħmlu bħalissa u ssibu siġġu u toqgħodu bil-qiegħda u tisimgħu. U għala għajnejk. Issa ħallaqak ma' xi ħadd speċjali, ħallaqak miegħek. U kun konxju tal-fiżiku tiegħek bil-qiegħda fuq is-siġġu. U ta' saqajk mal-art. Kun konxju tal-ħwejjeġ li għandek fuqek. Kun konxju tan-nifs. U kun konxju tal-kwiet. Issa ħalli l-għajnejn jinfetħu u ħares. U waqqaf il-kommentarju tas-sistema. U ħares lejn l-ispazju. U ibqa' mal-ħares. Ħares mingħajr ma tiġġudika. Ħares lejn il-forom u lejn l-ispazju fejn il-forom. Issa waqt li l-għajnejn qed iħarsu, kun konxju tas-smieħ u isma'. Isma' l-ħsejjes tal-bogħod u l-ħsejjes tal-viċin. U ibqa' mas-smieħ. Isma' l-kwiet. Issa kun konxju tat-toma. Kun konxju tax-xamm. U kun konxju tal-ħass. Nirringrazzjakom u nsellmilkom narġa'. Hawnhekk ħan introduċi il-Jani King u issa d-diskussjoni tinqaleb bl-Ingliż u xi kultant fejn nista' naqleb għal-Malti. But Jani King, she's an international workshop leader, and there is a higher teacher in humanity, and she will talk about this. Jani King, good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. Yes, it's lovely to be
here. We are
here.
in love with you. You were in Malta twice.
Yes. Yes.
And good morning, Pat. Pat is an interesting person. Jani will tell us what Pat does. And Rick is our friend, husband of Pat, and he's
and
a
Alfred
great man.
says bodyguard to Jani.
He's the bodyguard to Jani.
Sheepdog, as we call him.
He's our sheepdog.
So, Jani, can you tell us something about what you do, about yourself?
Yes,
Can you tell us?
Alfred. Yes, I can.
Yes.
I live in Australia, and for about 25 years, I've worked with a non-physical entity named Patar, and I channel. For this, some people are very familiar with this idea of channeling. In fact, really, in a way, I think it's kind of almost passé. But it is quite extraordinary. This entity speaks through me. I put myself into a light trance state, and this energy uses my body and my consciousness to teach. I'm sure that he is part of my more expanded consciousness. Somebody would say perhaps it's only me, and yes, it is only me, but there's more, because it accesses parts that I can't access in my normal waking day-to-day state.
May I stop?
Yes.
Hawnhekk Jani qed titkellem li hemm entità li m'għandix ġisem, hija non-physical entity. U din l-entità tuża l-enerġija ta' Jani, il-vuċi ta' Jani kollox, biex titrasmetti knowledge lill-umanità. Hija interessanti ħafna, forsi xi nies li qed jisimgħuna qatt ma semgħu biha, imma din hija entità mhix fiżikali. U l-erf li joħroġ minnha meta tibdew tisimgħuha, Jani ħatajdilna fuq din il-ħaġa. Għaliex hawn Malta dil-ġimgħa se jsir workshop, ngħidulkom fuq aktar tard, fejn din l-entità ħad titkellem tu Jani u tisimgħu din l-entità u tistgħu staqsu għall-mistoqsijiet. So Jani, I just explained about this little bit what you have said, and that also there is a chance for people to hear this in a workshop which is going to be held. We will tell them about it later on.
Yes.
In Malta.
Yes, that's right.
So you can carry on and tell us more about your, the beautiful sound you have. Speak to that and tell us more about yourself and this star.
Well, I suppose really that the reason for Patar is that Patar says that he comes from a yearning within humanity
So Patar it's a spirit.
Yes.
Yes, it is a spirit.
Yes. And he says that he comes in answer to a yearning in the heart of humanity to change, to create change. He says also that we're ending a very great cycle, in fact, a 52,000-year cycle. And, there are cycles within cycles. There are religious cycles that usually last about 2,000 years. There's with different teachers, etc. But this is a very great cycle. This is the kind of cycle that created the Ice Age, etc. So Patar says that we're coming to the end of this great cycle, that this cycle means a transformation in the consciousness of humanity. It means earth changes. It means that we're entering a whole new era. So it's very exciting. And you can really see the changes happening in our world now, even as we speak. So what Patar teaches is how we, as individuals, can transform our lives. We have the power to transform our personal life, to create more joy, more love, more wealth, more abundance, all of the good stuff, more play, more fun, all of that.
So, biex ngħidilkom li Patar qed jgħid li wasalna fi żmien ta' 52,000 years cycle. End, kollox jikber fid-dinja u wasalna f'dis cycle u Patar isu qed jisma' talba mill-umanità, l-essenza tal-umanità biex jippreparana għal din is-cycle. U Patar isu qed
Tgħid cycle, nispjegaw aħjar Alfred.
Cycle bħalissa qed jgħid 26,000 u 52,000. Ġifieri kull 26,000 l-univers jinbidlu l-affarijiet.
Isir jevolvi ruħu.
Jevolvi ruħu, biex jevolvi ruħu jinħolqu ħafna affarijiet differenti. Bħalma qed taraw x'qed jiġri bħalissa. Alla Patar isu ilu xi 25 sena jippreparana through Jani King, għax Jani King ilha titkellem fuq dan is-suġġett u ġiet Malta darbtej fuq dan is-suġġett u dar qed iddur id-dinja u qed jippreparana biex nilqgħu u huwa news sabiħ għax tilqa' kif inti tħossok aħjar, kif ikollok iktar abbundanza, inqas miżerja, tifhem? Alla isu qed jippreparana dawn l-affarijiet. Issa ħankompli.
Ekku.
Yes, thank you, Jani. All right.
So we're here for those who are interested or fascinated. We're here in Malta to do this workshop to actually give people positive keys and techniques to create change in their own life, to come into a really deep understanding of how each one of us creates our own reality, creates our day-to-day life. If you love it, that's wonderful. You go with the flow of it. If you don't like what you're creating and you do want change, for many people, they say, yes, I'd love to change my life, but And the but is usually about not really knowing how. So this is the main key of the workshop: creating change, creating expansion of consciousness.
So do we have the power?
We have
So
the power.
do I have the power to create change? If I am living a miserable life, I just separated and I have difficulties going to court, not having enough money,
Yes.
too much grievances. How can I, in fact, I don't even realize that there's a way how to change my life.
That's right, Alfred. That's absolutely right. Most people have no idea
No
how.
idea that not how,
Yes.
that there is also a way.
A way.
I mean,
that there is a choice,
that
in
there's
fact.
a choice. You see,
Yes,
as if
yeah.
I am born, people call it's my destiny.
Yes.
That's what God wanted me to suffer. I am supposed to suffer because Jesus suffered, so I am suffering. And why?
I don't see anything that Jesus ever said about suffering. I think this is something that we've been programmed to believe. We're supposedly created in God's image, and I believe that to be true. But I also believe that everything else in the universe was created in God's image, because I don't think you can quantify God in that way. And I'm absolutely positive that God had no intention for us to suffer. We've created this for ourselves, really, haven't we?
And how may I find out? Because it seems as if what Ptah is saying, that whatever happens to me or happened to me, something in me participated in it.
Yes.
So how can I find out that?
Well,
So that it won't happen again? Or,
I think the first thing is learning about taking responsibility, because the premise of all of this work is that each one of us creates and co-creates our reality absolutely. We're brought up to believe, that life should be like this and this and this. We live in a box of consciousness, and it's a very little box. And that box comprises of family history, it comprises duty, it comprises all of the beliefs that we hold about church or about whatever that is. And most people don't understand that there is a greater reality, that you can choose to live a different kind of life, and that you deserve to have all of the joy, all of the happiness, the freedom, the money. And a lot of people, of course, believe that money isn't spiritual. Well, of course, I believe that there isn't anything which is not spiritual.
yes. And amazing, you remind me about the word guilt. How can I be spiritual if I feel guilty of my,
It's a good story, Guilt keeps you very much locked in powerlessness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And when you understand that each one of us has responsibility, that the whole of life is a co-creation, that you participate in life with your spouse, your children, your parents, your in-laws, your boss, at work, all of that stuff. When you understand that really all of this is a co-creation, you are responsible only really for your well-being, your own creations, then if you understand that if you have a conflict with somebody, it's not just your conflict, it's the other person's conflict.
Yes.
It's a co-creation. And so when you understand about co-creation, the guilt thing seems to just fade away.
Forsi ninterrompu ftit u ngħidu naqra bil-Malti, aħna ħafna drabi il-guilt feeling huwa naturali fina.
Iva.
Ġifieri anke jekk imorru l-Knisja u ġvera, f'nistqar l-Alla lista kollox il-konħuti li nadnibt ħafna bil-ħsieb, bil-kliem, bil-emil. Ġifieri kontinwament aħna qed nitfgħu guilt feeling li aħna għandna ħafna ħażen fina, ġifieri kontinwament qiegħed fina. U kif qegħdin jgħidu dawn il-mistednin tiegħi dal-għodu dina titfana daqsxejn lura fil-ħajja tagħna mhux
Lele,
titfana.
għaxi għettajt li aħna jekk jienu inti ġilidna u għanna konflikt, ġifi jiena għandi tijaj u inti għandek tijak, ġifi it-nej qed nużaw il-gilt ta' xulxi ta' nafusna. Għalla hemmhekk qed jaħdmu ħafna affarijiet. Issi għettajt li we co-create, ġifi aħna qed noħolqu.
Però min natura tagħna Alfred aħna diġà guilty.
But this is a very good question. We are taught that from our nature we are guilty. We are born guilty.
Religions, for example.
Of what? Guilty of what?
Original sin.
Original sin. What is original sin?
Well, but we feel, we are taught, we are brought up to think that we are sinners.
Yes.
We are guilty.
Yes.
And
What a silly story, isn't it?
well,
Don't you really honestly think it's a silly story? I think, do you think it's a silly story? I think it's a silly story. You know, what is original sin? Can you answer what original sin is? I don't know what original sin is.
it could be the sin of my ancestors.
Adam and Eve, for example.
But what does it mean, sin, really? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to talk about sin, I think probably sin is where you treat other people with unkindness, the power brokers creating wars, creating starvation. If there's a sin, I believe that's what it is. All of this business of original sin and mea culpa and guilt, all of this is very, very good at keeping everybody powerless in a box, unable to change anything.
Yes. Now, rather than go into the, my question is this, is for the people who are listening.
Yes.
How can, rather than going into the original sin, which is a philosophical debate, and people say, what can I do? And rather, how can I own my own unhappiness? How can I own it? Because usually I am unhappy because of.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, that's the thing that'll keep you powerless forever, isn't it?
Now, how can you, what does Ptah says? I am unhappy.
He says, take responsibility,
So
because it's your creation.
So Ptah is saying, if these two people cheated me in business,
Yes.
then the feeling which I have,
Is that it's all their fault.
It's mine. It's not their fault. Is that what Ptah says?
Well, yeah, because you've participated in that. The 50% of that is your creation.
Yes.
No matter what you create with somebody else. You have a car accident, you know, no matter that it was somebody else's fault, you're in there 50%.
Yes.
And until you take responsibility for your creations, you can't change anything.
And when you, that's very good. And this is something which I've been studying, and I've heard Ptah, and I loved when I heard this the first time. I could not almost believe it, but I said, well, let's give it a thought. Because why is it, for example, anger? Why can I not, how can I help myself to create a type of anger management? How can I do something with my anger? Yes, well then, whatever I do, then Ivan comes and disturbs, you know, my parents or my brother. Now I get angry. How can I deal with anger?
All right. Underneath the anger, every time you're in a rage, underneath that is a feeling, and the feeling is a fear of being powerless. And so to create change and to create the anger management is to take responsibility for the co-creation of the event, your brother disturbing you or whatever the story is, and all of it is just a story out there, you see, it's just a story. What it does is it brings you to a feeling. When you express the feeling as anger, just stop, think about it, breathe into it, and be in the understanding that underneath that rage is simply a fear of being totally powerless, which means powerless to change anything.
Jiena issa qed nerġa' ngħidilkom li jekk tridu hemm workshop is-sibt, dawn il-mistoqsijiet issaqsuhom dirett il-Ptah. I'm just telling people
Yes.
that if they want on Saturday, they can ask these questions direct to Ptah.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
Yes.
Jani King is just remembering what Ptah speaks about.
Yes.
But she's not in Ptah at the moment. I mean, Ptah will be available in the workshop.
Absolutely.
And you can ask this spiritual entity direct questions.
Even personal questions, for
Yeah,
example.
even personal questions. And this Ptah, you can also do personal xedu għal-kelma. Personal sessions, yes. No, this is amazing. You can also do personal sessions with Ptah. So, but let's carry on. Il-biqiet tajt fuq il-rabja.
Forsi kien hemm min ingħaqad magħna issa u forsi qatt ma fimniex eżattament il-Ptah. Ptah huwa enerġija.
Ptah huwa entità.
Jaħsbu li huwa xi Alla jew xi
mhux Alla. Alla wieħed hawn. Ptah huwa entità spiritwali li jagħti l-messaġġ tal-Alla lill-umanità għax hemm għajta mill-umanità peress li hawn dal-bidliet fid-dinja li qed jipprova jirrispondi lil